I moved into a cheap apartment after my divorce, just outside the city in a quiet neighborhood. The building was old but oddly peaceful, and the rent was too good to pass up. I didn't notice anything strange for the first few weeks. One night, around 2:45 a.m., I woke up to the sound of slow footsteps outside my door. It sounded like someone walking carefully down the hallway. I figured it was just a neighbor heading to the bathroom or coming home late. But then I noticed the footsteps always stopped right outside my door. They wouldn't continue past it or return the way they came. They'd just stop and stand there. I didn't open the door the first time it happened. Instead, I sat in bed, holding my breath, listening. After about 30 seconds, the footsteps faded away. This happened again the next night, and the next, always at 2:45 a.m., and always stopping at my door. It felt less like a coincidence, and more like a routine. I started asking my neighbors about it. Most said they hadn't noticed anything strange, but one old lady on the third floor gave me a weird look. She said, "You live in 1B, right? That's where he stops." I asked her who he was, but she just mumbled something about bad energy and closed her door. I laughed it off, sort of. But that night, the footsteps came again. And this time, they stayed longer. I tiptoed to the door and looked through the peephole. There was no one there, but I still heard the footsteps. It was like the sound was there, but the body wasn't. That's when I called the landlord and asked if someone lived above me. He paused, then said, "There's no one above you. That unit's been vacant since last year." I didn't like the way he said it. I went upstairs that afternoon to check. The door to the apartment above mine was sealed with police tape, though it was faded and brittle. There was a rusty dent near the doorknob, like someone had tried to force their way out. I Googled the address and found an article from 2 years ago. A man had gone missing in that unit, disappeared without a trace. His name was Mark Linden, and he was last seen on a Thursday night at 2:45 a.m. I didn't sleep well after that. Every creak of the floorboards or pipe in the wall sounded like footsteps. And then, one night, I heard breathing outside my door. Soft, slow, rhythmic breathing. Too close, like someone was leaning against the door. But again, no one was there. I put a chair against the door and left every light on. But at 2:45 a.m., the power went out. Just silence and darkness. The footsteps returned, louder than before, like boots on tile. This time, they didn't stop at my door. They walked into the room. Even though the door never opened, I felt something cold move past my bed, like the air changed around me, thicker, heavier. And then it was gone. I slept in my car the next night. Even from the parking lot, I saw a shape standing in my hallway window. It looked just like the silhouette I imagined every night. I moved out the next week. Didn't even bother to get my deposit back. I just wanted to leave whatever that thing was behind that door. A few days ago, I got a call from an unknown number. When I answered, all I heard was footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and then a whisper, "You forgot something." I still wake up at 2:45 a.m. Not because of footsteps now, but because I'm afraid they'll come back. And some nights, I swear I still hear breathing. When I was 14, I used to play hide and seek with my little sister in our backyard. It was fenced in, but bordered by a thin patch of woods that we were told not to go into. We never listened. One evening just before dinner, I was and looking for my sister. I heard giggling behind the big oak tree at the far end of the yard. I tiptoed toward it, ready to jump out and scare her. But when I got closer, she wasn't giggling anymore. She was just standing there, facing the tree, completely still. I said her name, but she didn't turn around. Something about the way she stood didn't feel right. Too stiff, too quiet. Her hands were at her sides, not hiding, not moving. And her head was tilted just slightly. Like she was listening. I was about to tap her shoulder when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw my actual sister running up, laughing. "Found you!" she shouted. I looked back toward the tree, but no one was there. The figure was gone, like it had never been there at all. I told my parents what I saw, but they just thought it was a trick of the light. I even tried to convince myself that I imagined it. But my sister said something that still haunts me. She said, "I saw her too." And then she whispered, "She was watching us play from behind the tree." I asked who. She just said, "The other me." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment in my head. How still the girl was. How she didn't blink or move. It felt like I had seen a puppet or something pretending to be human. A few days later, I stayed inside while my sister played outside alone. She ran inside crying, saying she saw herself again near the tree. Only this time, the other her waved. We told our parents again. This time, they scolded us for making up stories. But my sister started sleeping in my room after that. She wouldn't even look out the window anymore. I started keeping watch out the window. At exactly 8:27 p.m. every night, something would move behind that tree. Not a person, just a dark shape. That I took a flashlight and went outside to prove to myself it was nothing. As I stepped into the yard, the air suddenly felt colder. The crickets had gone completely silent. I shined the light behind the tree. For a second, I saw her again. Pale skin, blank eyes, same clothes my sister wore. Then she vanished behind the trunk. I ran back inside and locked the door. I didn't tell anyone that time, because deep down, I knew what I saw wasn't human. We moved a year later after my dad got transferred. I tried to forget everything, but some things stay with you. Just last week, my sister called me crying. She said she saw the other her again, in the park near her college, standing behind a tree, waving. I asked her if she was sure. She said, "She's older now, just like me." I still dream about that backyard sometimes. I hear the giggling, the footsteps, the silence that follows, and always that girl, staring at me from behind the tree. Some things follow you, not in body, but in memory. And sometimes, I wonder if what we saw was never really behind the tree. Maybe it was inside us all along, waiting to come out. I broke my leg last spring and couldn't move around much. So I hired a cleaner off Craigslist to help with dishes, trash, and laundry. His name was Caleb, and he showed up right on time. He looked normal. Maybe mid-30s, clean clothes, soft-spoken. But something about his eyes felt too alert, like he was always calculating something. Still, I was grateful for the help. For the first hour, he just cleaned quietly and moved room to room. But I noticed he kept glancing toward my bedroom door, even though I hadn't asked him to go in there. When I asked if he needed anything, he just said, "Just getting a feel for the place." The second time he came, I stayed in the living room and turned on the TV. He moved slower than before, stopping now and then to just stare. At first, I thought he was daydreaming, but something felt off. Later that day, I found one of my kitchen drawers full of raw meat. Just slabs of uncooked, unwrapped meat, like from a butcher's freezer. There was no explanation, and he never even used the kitchen that day. I texted him to ask about it. He responded with a single message. "You said you wanted deep cleaning." I didn't reply. I should have blocked him, but something made me hesitate. Maybe I wanted to know what he was really doing in my house. So I let him come one more time, but I set up a camera. That visit was different. He barely cleaned anything. He walked into the hallway and stood by my bedroom door for almost 5 minutes. Then he slowly reached for the doorknob, but didn't open it. I watched him live on my phone feed from the couch. He didn't speak, didn't move much, just stared at the doorknob like it was whispering to him. Then he turned and looked straight into the camera. After that, I told him not to come back. He replied instantly, "You don't have to let me in. I already know the layout." I blocked his number and unlisted my Craigslist ad. For a few days, nothing happened, but I started noticing weird things. My toothpaste was moved. The hallway light was on when I woke up. Then one night, the TV turned on by itself at 3:11 a.m. I checked my front door lock. It was still deadbolt. Nothing was broken or open, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been inside. I rewatched the camera footage. At exactly 2:47 a.m., there was static, then nothing, then a faint breathing sound. The hallway camera came back on at 3:04, but the bedroom door was slightly open. I reported everything to the police. They said there was no sign of forced entry and treated me like I was imagining things. But they agreed to send someone to patrol the neighborhood for a few nights. That night, I moved a chair under my doorknob and kept the lights on. But I still woke up to a soft sound, like a mop dragging across wood. When I opened my eyes, I saw a wet streak under the door. The next morning, I checked the footage again. At 2:59 a.m., the camera glitched, and then, he was just there, standing in the middle of my living room, holding that same mop. I took that footage to the police again. This time, they actually looked worried. One officer asked me if I remembered the cleaner's license plate. I didn't. They ran the Craigslist number through a system. It was a burner phone, untraceable. No ID, no full name, no digital footprint. Like he never existed. I've since moved to a new city, changed everything. Phone, locks, even my name on rental agreements. But sometimes, I still see wet footprints on my porch in the morning. And one time, there was a mop leaning against my back door. I've learned to live with the feeling of being watched. And now I never hire help online. I don't care how desperate I get. Because somewhere out there, Caleb is still cleaning and learning new layouts.